Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to you. It's been about 2 weeks since we did the last roundup, so it's about time we did another one. If you're unfamiliar with these, it's we take a bit of a short pause for breath. We look at the best games we reviewed in the last couple of weeks or whenever and try and get them into a top 6. Now this time round, like other weeks, is particularly so, even more super difficult because we started reviewing Commodore 64 games. And of course, all the recommendations are the best Commodore 64 games because we're right at the start there. So they're going to feature heavily, no doubt. We're covering all the best ones. And also as well, we've just started doing Amiga 1200 games. We've only done 2 so far, but both of them have been really special. So the ZX Spectrum games might have to take a bit of a backseat this time round, but we'll soon see. But anyway, before we come to the top 6, I do want to come to 2 notable mentions that didn't make the top 6 that are both ZX Spectrums, which normally would have made the top 6 no problem. So competitive it is that any that I finally did put in my top 6 might have actually won in any other week. So the first one I want to tell you about is Oh Mummy by Gem Software in 1984. It's a sort of like a maze game based on the arcade cabinet game called Amadar, and it's quite basic. Essentially, you're a stickman, or not much more than a stickman, going around a square maze. You must encircle or square certain squares of this maze to release what's inside. You get a key and you unlock tombs and get money, then you have to hit this green exit cube. Doesn't sound like there's much to it, but I found it quite enjoyable for a little while. I think I'd get bored if I was playing it for hours and hours, but that's Oh Mummy on the ZX Spectrum 48K, of course. And the other ZX Spectrum 48K which didn't make it, which normally would, is SCUBA KIDZ, spelt with a Z at the end, by SILVERBIRD Software in 1988. Now, other scuba diving games I've played are Scuba Dive, the actual classic by Jarrell Software, and Titanic by Toposoft, which wasn't quite as good. But Scuba KIDZ is quite good. It's stage-based, where you control a diver, must rescue one of your kidnapped friends by going up through obstacles, solving clues, getting keys and opening doors. And all the time your oxygen is gradually going down. A really nice put-together game, so there's those 2 there. Also, in the top 6, we covered a really... I've decided to put this separate from the top 6, but could have won again. It's a remake of the classic game ATIC Attack by Ultimate Play the Game, which originally came out in 1983. This is a remake by Richard Jordan on the PC of 2006. Now, because ATIC Attack was such a classic game, you think, right, any remakes aren't going to be as good. In my time growing up, I did play some public domain games on the Amiga that's supposed to be ATIC Attack, but they were nothing like it. But this is an exception to the rule. This is a really good remake conversion. 2006, so a little while ago now, is available on the Retrospec website if you want to Google that. But what's really clever about this game is it doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. It takes what originally was there, or the basis of it, all the original maps, and does an overlay of graphics, enhancing them greatly, adds additional sounds on it, and also as well special effects are on there too, and each character does feel different when you actually play the game. A wizard, a serf and a knight going around a castle. I really love this one, and you know, I almost like it as much as the original, maybe secretly even a bit more, but I don't want to admit that to myself, but a brilliant game. We looked at 2 pinball tables as well as we gradually go through Season 7 of Faxright Studios, and it's tables that won't be available soon from Faxright because they're not renewing the licenses for Williams and Bally's tables, and both of these were of those licenses. First one was Firepower 2 by based on the Williams table from 1983. Quite a basic table, this one, very similar to the original Firepower. There's a couple of pop bumpers to hit up the top there on the upper playfield and a few targets. I quite like the retro sounds of this, but I'm always a sucker for games for some reason in the early 80s, although I never owned this one back in the time, or any pinball table in fact, but it feels really nice to play. I think it's because of the simplicity and the basics to it, and you can't beat those clean cut lines and simplicity. You haven't got to learn too many rules, a couple of ramps to hit too. And the other table, as we quite apt as we're coming up to the World Cup, was World Champion Soccer, I should say, by Bally in 1994. This table came out to coincide with the World Cup then, which is in USA of 1994. Really over the top speech. You have to score goals, take corners, penalty kicks with the ball, different ramps, and it's really quite an enjoyable affair. It's one of the highlights so far I've seen from Season 7. I think the original table was called World Cup Soccer, but they couldn't afford, Faxright couldn't afford the licenses from FIFA, so when they look at these tables quite often they have to buy multiple licenses. So then it became World Champion Soccer. I think some of the lights actually on the playboard itself normally would have said World Cup, but this time they say Champion instead. So yeah, I like both of those tables. The next table is going to look at a Fathom and I think Ghostbusters. That should be interesting. Right, okay, so we're finally through what's made the top 6. Right, in 6th place, you might disagree with these, you might put them in a completely different order, but that's okay, it's all about sharing views. And 6th place we've got PITSTOP 2 by EPYX in 1984 on the Commodore 64. Now, what's really clever about this game, I haven't got too many experience about Commodore 64 as I didn't own one back in the day, this is split screen, which is really clever. 1 to 2 players, although the second player will be controlled by the AI if you want to. Although this looks brilliant and it plays brilliant and it sounds brilliant as pit stops, it was a little bit difficult. Maybe I should have put it in rookie, but you can do individual races over 6 different tracks I believe, and you can do a Grand Prix championship as well. Good game, but a little bit too difficult I think, but you know, you can work your way up. I'd only played it about 2 times, so I might be being a little cruel. I've seen screenshots of the original pit stop and this is a big leap forward from there. So EPYX from 1984. And in 5th place, a game I've really enjoyed on other systems like the Game Boy Advance and the Commodore Amiga. The Commodore Amiga was the ultimate version, but this is IK Plus, or International Karate Plus, published by Systems 3 in 1987, again on the Commodore 64. Now, on a lot of these Commodore 64 games, these classic ones, I'm very surprised at how close they've managed to get to the actual Commodore Amiga versions, the versions which I've first become aware of. The music on this is not quite as bouncy as the Amiga version, but it gets quite close. It hasn't really got the bass there. You're a karate man and must go through the belts, starting from white up to black belt, doing various challenges, and those challenges might involve fighting 2 other guys, the red and the blue suited fellow, and deflecting balls with a shield. Now the only difference really being from the 16-bit versions is you have to deflect bombs on one of the mini games on the floor. This one you're just knocking away balls in the mini game. Really plays well. The backgrounds move, which is great. Just like the Amiga version, there's birds flying across and odd things to look out for, and there's a secret mode to get everyone to drop their trousers, which yeah, I prefer this to the Spectrum versions. That was 5th. And in 4th place, I put The Great GIANA Sisters, published by Rainbow Arts in 1987. Now, this is a platform game, heavily influenced by the Super Mario Brothers, and I don't think this game was available very long before Nintendo actually shut it down, saying it was too similar to their game, which is fair enough. But I think this is brilliant. I've never really played Super Mario because I didn't really own the Nintendo systems, but I loved the GIANA Sisters both on the Commodore Amiga and the Commodore 64. Again, I'm surprised at how close they got to the Commodore Amiga version here. Wasn't available very long, so not many people might have played it, but now on emulation I presume more people would have played it through there. I think there's about 33 stages, getting progressively more difficult, and there's walk gates and power-ups and all the things that you've come to love. So in 6th place we put PITSTOP 2 by EPYX in 1984. In 5th place, IK Plus, or International Karate Plus, published by Systems 3 in 1987. And in 4th place, The Great GIANA Sisters by Rainbow Arts in 1987. So all 3 of those were on the Commodore 64, and all classics. So the top 3 then, is it going to be Commodore 64 again, or is it going to be something else? Well, in 3rd place, on the Amiga 1200, the AGA chipset, we've got Banshee, published by Core Design in 1994. A rather splendid shooter with different weather conditions. It's set in a sort of like World War II Battle of Britain sort of thing, but it's way beyond that. Previously on the channel I've done my top 10 vertical shooters of all time, and I didn't know this game then, and this probably would feature in the top 3. I'll probably have it ahead of Xenon 2, might be ahead of SCUBA. I'm not sure about Banshee because that was brilliant, but certainly more than Hybris. Graphics are good. If you want an arcade quality shooter and you've got an Amiga 1200 or an emulated that would do the computer, then this is absolutely awesome. I had a couple of goes at it and it's a good learning curve. It takes a while to get used to the power-ups to make the most use of them, but a really fantastic game, holds together well, and just like SCUBA, it seems to scroll on and on rather than doing independent stages or what have you. And in second place, I put Buggy Boy by Elite Systems in 1987, an arcade conversion. I played this on the Amiga, but oddly I prefer this 64 version better. Spectrum version, the car was way too big for it to be enjoyable, but Buggy Boy on the Commodore 64 has got everything right. The playability is there, the size of the car's there, the speed is there, and most importantly the fun factor's there. You control a buggy over 4 or 5 different terrains or circuits, must go through flags, go through checkpoints before the time runs out. Collision detection is great, it's really fair gameplay. It can get frustrating at times, you've got to go around fences and various things, but you can control your jumps. 2 gears to select, high and low. I'm a big fan of Buggy Boy, and out of all the versions I've played, this is definitely my favourite one. A really good game. If you can catch up with that, I really recommend it. So, in first place, although it was a bit of a head scratcher and I changed my mind with the top 3 quite a few times, in first place I put by the Bitmap Brothers, published by Renegade in 1993. Have you got it yet? Yep, it's the Chaos Engine. Excellent. Now the Bitmap Brothers were to do other fantastic games such as Speedball 2, Gods, the original Speedball, and a number of others, but this game there's really a lot to like. It's 1 to 2 players, although the computer will control player 2 if you've got no one there available. It's a steampunk style game. Essentially this machine called the Chaos Engine was developed to alter time or meddle with DNA, but it's gone out of control like all these things in computer games do, and choosing one of 6 players you must go through and destroy it and its inventor. Now what was clever about this game, as well as being brilliant graphics and excellent level design, the 6 players you choose are not all identical, they move at different speeds and have different weapons. So even if you complete the game with one character, it'll leave you going wanting to complete it with the other ones, which is really good. Music is fantastic in this. I want to play the sequel, the Chaos Engine 2, but people are telling me in the comment section this isn't quite as good, but we'll soon find out because I'll play that maybe next week or the week after. I try and space them apart so all the games aren't too samey. So, in summary then, in third place we had Banshee on the Amiga 1200 by Core Design in 1994. 2 years later they was to produce Tomb Raider on the PlayStation 1, that's how good they were. In second place is Buggy Boy by Elite Systems in 1987 on the Commodore 64, and again on the Amiga 1200 using the AGA chipset was the Chaos Engine by Renegade in 1993 and developed by the wonderful Bitmap Brothers. So thank you for watching the games again. If there's any there that you haven't seen and want to go back and have a look at them, then please do so. Quite a number of games as well that I haven't even mentioned that didn't even make the shortlist, so do go back and have a look if you've missed any, because quite a lot have gone up. So thanks again, and thank you for supporting the channel, it really is appreciated. Until next time, keep watching, take care of yourself, and a very fond goodbye.
Goodbye.